Welcome to the Holistic Dentistry Podcast, the show that gives you the tips and tools to detoxify your mouth for a healthier body.
Welcome to today's show, everyone. I'm very excited to talk to Ken Swartz today about C60. And a lot of you might not even know what C60 is and the importance it has on oral health, but also overall health. So Ken, welcome to the show. You and I met through the Mindshare community, and I, for the first time, have heard of C60 when I met you. So I'm excited to dive deeper into the studies that you have on C60 because you do have quite a bit of scientific data on what C60 can do for humans, at least. But let's talk about you a little bit. You're the founder and chief science officer of C60 Power, which I actually use every morning in my coffee, thanks to you. C60 Power is a health and wellness company committed to delivering really high quality C60 products. You can have earned a master's degree from University of Colorado at Denver, and then a Bachelor of Science in Economics in Arizona. But you spent the early part of your career as a secondary school teacher, and you are passionate about helping and educating people. And really that shows through, and I'm sure it'll show in this episode. You ran several research science labs over the course of your career. And I really would love to hear how you discovered C60 while you were doing different research.
Well, I was working on a metal oxygen fusion reactor project. I was running it. And there's a lot of late doctors this and dead professors that associated with that research. So I didn't want to end up, or my crew to end up in that category. So I went out looking for a radiation protectant. And I came across this stuff called carbon 60, C60 for short. And so, there was some science studies where, they gave one set of rats C60, the other didn't get it, the control group. They hit them with a deadly dose of radiation. Pretty much all the C60 rats lived, where the control group, of course, immediately died. And
wow.
And so after learning that, I got a couple sources of C60, and we used it during the experimentation. And we're all still around, by the way. And but what happened is I kept using it afterwards because I felt it gave me a little bit more energy, some better mental clarity. And like the afternoon blahs you get after you eat lunch, you want to take a nap.
That's right.
And so, but what really kind of brought it to the attention is about 7 months after starting using C60, I went into my optometrist office, and my DRUs, or dry macular degeneration, which I'd had for years and was slowly progressing, had completely disappeared.
Phenomenal. And that's the only thing you were doing different, having C60. And what's your favorite way to eat C60 or to take it?
Well, for years we had the oils and stuff, which is great, but we've also come out with our new gummies.
Yes, I've tried them.
My favorite now. Yeah, they're sugar-free and sugar for regular, for those people that like that too. Some people just like that. They're a tasty treat. And also you can carry it too. You can throw this in your pocket or purse or something, and it tastes great. Also, you get really good compliance from kids and older people, because if you try to have them do a spoon of oil, it's like, it's almost like punishment. Whereas if you have a candy, a nice treat that's sugar-free but it tastes really great, then it's almost like a treat, and they're happy to do that.
That's so true. I know. I've had those C60 gummies, and I swear I could have the whole box easily.
Yes, that is one of the dangers of it, because they are so good tasting.
That's true. So what is carbon 60, and where do you get it from?
Well, it's a little carbon molecule, a 60 carbon atom. It's actually shaped like a little soccer ball, exactly like a little soccer ball, but it's hollow inside. And it was discovered in 1985. They got a Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1996 because it's pretty much the most unique, one of the most unique molecules in nature. We'll probably get into some of that later, its action. But it was really hard to make, and it wasn't until the early 2000s they started doing testing. And one of the most famous studies is the Diplomate study, which was a study actually testing for toxicity. But instead of being toxic to test animals, it actually increased their lifespan by 90%. And that's kind of what led to a whole lot more research on C60. And really what they discovered is it was really a incredibly powerful antioxidant but a specific antioxidant. And for those listening, I'll get a little sciencey here. It's what's called a superoxide dismutase slash catalase mimic, and that means it takes care of superoxide in the body, which is the body's most damaging oxidative radical. It's produced a lot in the mitochondria, and also C60 takes care of the hydroxyl ion, which is the second most damaging oxidative radical in the body. Usually glutathione does that job, but then that's all C60 interacts with. C60 doesn't interact with any of the body's signaling molecules, which is really important because that it doesn't interfere with the body's processes. There's a lot of vitamins like vitamin E and A and C, which are antioxidants. But if you take too many of them, they're actually toxic because they interfere with some of the body's signaling molecules, which are antioxidants, like nitrogen oxide and hydrogen peroxide. And there's some based around sulfur, iron, and zinc. And so none of those, so C60 is basically the only antioxidant which can increase athletic performance, by the way.
Wow. So when we take C60, is there toxicity to C60, like antioxidants?
Well, they tried that. Usually stuff they found for beneficial is 0.1 milligram per kilogram of body weight to 0.2, which is pretty, low amount. But they decided, because they had all these beneficial reports, there's just lots and lots of them. And then so they decided at what level is C60 toxic. So they took it up to like 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. That's 10,000 times the quote health beneficial dose. And even at that level, there was no toxicity. And so,
is C60 naturally found in our body?
C60 was originally found on the early Earth and was probably the original antioxidant of life. It was the scaffolding which RNA and DNA originally started, but it went away. And today, like SOD and catalase do the job of superoxide. Do the job of C60. It takes 2 of them, and that's why it has no toxicity. So today it's only found like in the burnt wick of your candle, it's 0.25%. In charcoal, it's maybe 0.1%. So it's not really present in any large quantities in today's world, but in the early Earth, it was in plenitude because it's also made in meteoritic impact. So there's some suggestion that C60 was like the original antioxidant of life and the scaffolding for RNA and DNA chemistry. And even though, it's disappeared, when you take it, it passes the gut barrier, the blood-brain barrier. It's taken into the cells through endocytosis and into the mitochondria, and the mitochondria actually know how to use it. And it gets right in there, and it neutralizes superoxide, the most damaging oxidative radical, which is produced in the mitochondria. So especially as we get older, our SOD levels and catalase levels go down. You take C60, it goes right in, and it raises those levels up. And so now your mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of your cell, are back to making lots of ATP, lots of pregnenolone, the precursor molecule for the hormone. And there's a bunch of other little things that mitochondria do, which are really important for cellular metabolism.
Yeah. And some people listening might not even know what mitochondria is, and why mitochondria is so important. So tell us a little bit why it's so important to activate the mitochondria with C60.
Well, see, we're multicellular organisms and we're eukaryotic cells, but inside of our cells, we have these little organelles called mitochondria. And they are the powerhouse of the cell. They produce like 97% of all the energy the cell uses is produced in the mitochondria. And that's super important because, you need energy to run. And basically, the mitochondria need antioxidants that the larger cell produces. And those tend to go down as we age, like a lot of other things. And so C60, especially in the gray hair crowd, when you take C60, it restores the SOD catalase. It's an SOD catalase mimic, so it restores those levels by basically being a mimic. And so your mitochondria can turn back on, and you get all that energy you need, the energy you used to have when you were younger. And athletes use it too for increased performance.
Yeah, it makes sense if it activates the mitochondria. So what about somebody with chronic fatigue that is listening to this? I always say something's off with their mitochondria. Somebody has chronic fatigue. So do you see a difference when somebody starts to take C60 for chronic fatigue?
Yes, and there's there is a problem with mitochondria function for chronic fatigue, but a lot of chronic fatigue is actually caused by dopamine suppression. And C60 is very good at anti-inflammatory, especially when you've got autoimmune conditions like, because let's say you have inflammation, right? There's acute inflammation. You sprain your ankle, right? It swells up. You have all that other stuff. It heats up, all that stuff, part of the healing process. But one thing people don't know, a lot of people don't know, is also suppresses dopamine production. And dopamine is literally the molecule, the motivation molecule. It's the molecule that gets you up in the morning out of bed. And with acute inflammation, it's good to have it suppressed because your body doesn't want you to get up on that damaged ankle and cause more damage, right? But a lot of people have chronic inflammation. It might be in the joints, it might be in the gut, or the dozens of other places that chronic inflammation could hide in the body. Well, when C60 gets in there, C60 reduces that inflammation because a lot of that inflammation is caused by superoxide or the hydroxyl ion, as those are really damaging oxidative radicals. And once that chronic inflammation is reduced, then your dopamine levels rise. And then the fatigue goes away, because a lot of that chronic fatigue is really just dopamine suppression and through the inflammation pathway.
That's amazing. And you also mentioned that it actually crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, and that's yes.
So what kind of effects would it have if it does that?
Well, the number one thing that the nerve cells, they're like 2% of the body's weight, but they use 20% of the energy. So they are just packed with hundreds of mitochondria to do all, because it's the nerve cells just doing a lot of work. And so when C60 passes the gut-brain barrier, it's taken into the nerve cells and into the mitochondria of the nerve cells, where if it can increase the function of the mitochondria in the nerve cells, making that ATP, that's the energy that makes the nerve cell run. And so everything that the nerve cell does needs ATP. And so that's the first thing people notice taking C60 is increase in mental clarity and focus. The brain fog kind of lifts. And so any cell type that has a lot of mitochondria, and another cell type which has even more mitochondria is the endocrine system. And the mitochondria in the endocrine system make a lot of pregnenolone, which is the precursor molecule for all the hormones. So you're going to get more melatonin, better sleep. You'll get more human growth hormone and other master hormones in the pituitary hypothalamus complex. And you'll get more T3 and T4. We've had people go completely off their medications, and that's one thing. Don't, consult with your doctor. And this is one of the contraindications. If you're on a blood thinner, you need to consult with your doctor if you're going to take C60, because what C60 does, it'll restart your adrenal glands. And one of the things your adrenal glands make is mineral corticoids. And that's what makes your blood, quote, thick or thin. It balances out. So the underlying problem, we've had this in a lot of cases, the underlying problem of causing blood thickness goes away. And if you're taking a blood thinner, now your blood's too thin. So you do need to do more testing with your doctor to make sure that you adjust your medications as that happens. And it won't happen overnight, but it will happen over time. And so there needs to be much more testing, because it's always, they say, test, don't guess.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a big fan of testing. So in the beginning, when C60 was discovered, what are some of the first tests that was done on it in terms of the health benefits?
Well, let's go. We could go into the human ones, because there's a lot of animal studies. So let's kind of go. Well, the first one was actually they put C60 in a cream, and for Japanese women, they found that C60 applied topically it decreased fine lines and wrinkles in Japanese women. They did another where they put it on topically applied and increased hair growth. And then, there's a lot of experiments you can't do on like people, right? But you can do it on human cells in the test tube, in vitro, as they call it. And so they found, like, one of the ones they found is C60 moderated the release of histamines out of human mast cells. And histamines are the allergic response and a lot of other kind of responses like that. And then that went to an animal study where they found that animals with C60, it prevented like the cytokine storm and the anaphylactic shock in animals, which is
amazing.
And part of it, they don't know exactly the whole mechanism. Part of it is the increase in mitochondria efficiency. The cell could properly regulate itself because it had enough energy and other things. So that appears to be the cause. But we did found in animal studies. And also they did some nerve studies. They found that C60 protected nerve cells from a variety of toxins. One set of human nerve cells in the test tube got C60, the control didn't. Then they hit them with various toxins, and it prevented nerve cell damage in the C60. They also used human skin cells with C60. They found it reduced UV damage. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a few other tests like that in vitro, because you can't really do some experiments with people. And there's a whole
Yeah, I
bunch
mean,
of,
we're bombarded with radiation today, and you bring up the protection for UV radiation, and there's so much other radiation, like cell phone radiation, Wi-Fi radiation. And of course, in a dental office, we have dental radiation, and oftentimes my patients ask me, well, I'm worried about the radiation. Is there something that I can take? And it sounds like C60 is a great option for people that want to protect themselves from radiation.
yes, and there's like, well, I took C60 in my fusion reactor project, but that's from ionizing radiation. That's things that like cause hydroxyl ions. That's like gamma rays and X-rays like that you have in the dental thing. But there's a lot of things like electromagnetic radiation or radio waves, microwave waves, right? For years and years, they thought, oh, these don't do damage because they don't heat up the tissues. But for instance, now they found that a lot of those 5G microwave frequencies, they'll jam open voltage gated channels in the cell. And so they're voltage gated and the EM radiation. So like calcium ions can leak in the cell and cause damage. And
Yes.
also those EM radiation can cause proteins to misfold. And they also can cause damage in the mitochondria function. They get in there. Mitochondria have a lot of voltage gated stuff going on in there. And it's just, because that's charge, electric charge, and EM radiation can interact with those electric charges. And of course, the number one thing is actually to avoid that radiation in the first place. But
Yes.
a lot of that radiation will cause oxidative radicals, and then C60 can neutralize those oxidative radicals before they cause damage. And one thing I want to say, C60 is not a magic pill. It's not going to cure everything. What it is, it's one tool in the toolkit of good health. It kind of lifts the oxidative burden your body is under, but you still got to do all of those things. Proper nutrition, clean water, enough sleep, avoid toxic situations and people and environments, and all those other things need to be done as well. But it's a really great support to help with all of that on your journey to good health.
Absolutely. You mentioned oxidative stress. And the truth is, as long as we're alive, we produce oxidative stress because our cells need to breathe and creates oxidative stress. So some people, of course, especially if you mentioned athletes, right? They produce more oxidative stress than other people. Yeah, a lot more oxidative stress. So are there some studies on oxidative stress and C60?
Well, they've had animal studies that would go in that direction. Human studies, they kind of got rid of that 3 decades ago. Some of those ones, but it definitely. I mean, we can know from things like DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. That's like you really work out, and like 2 days later you're tired. And they found that if people take C60, that's reduced, and also recovery times are really reduced. So we had a couple players for professional, now it was actually a college football team, and their dad was actually taking it, and then they were in spring training, and it's pretty stressful. So the dad supplied that for his son, and the son shared it with his roommate, the friend in the football team. And whereas they'd work out the spring training, all the other players would just be too tired to do anything, where they take their C60 and they'd be recovered 45 minutes to an hour, and then they could go out on the town and do the thing. But all the rest of the team was like laying around. Eventually the assistant coaches talked to them, and they discovered the secret, and the team did. Now the team didn't go and win the finals, but they had a better team experience, and athletic.
Of course.
And we've had lots of like mid-packers in various fields. We're not going to name any names. Go to like champions in their field using C60.
Now, also oxidative stress in dentistry, of course. When we have infection, gum disease, there's definitely more oxidative stress. And C60 sounds like it can be used both topically and ingested. Are there any oral health studies that you know of that can contribute to the healing?
There haven't been any oral health studies. We have anecdotal things from our customers. A lot of customers have found when they'll like swish with C60 and then swallow it, even though it's it's probably the exact way aerobic oil
pulling. Yes.
Yeah, pulling. But they found that it really, really helps with gum healing. And one of the things C60 does, C60 stimulates stem cell production massively. And so if you have, that's two things. If you got a lot of stem cells, well, then your immune system has a lot of new immune soldiers to go in there and fix problems. But it also helps, if you don't have enough tissue, turnover of tissue. And I mean, that's like with the Japanese women that that got rid of fine lines or wrinkles. They eventually figured out that was because there was more stem cells, and so there's more stem cells, so the skin turned over, more correctly. Well, your oral tissues are literally skin cells. There's the outside skin cells, but they're still what do you call it?
Endothelial, yeah.
Endothelial tissues. And so they're exactly cousins of your skin. And so just as it healed the skin on the outside, C60 can heal the skin and the gut, because the gut is actually skin cells of a slightly different variety. And so that you get great healing if you swish with C60, because it increases stem cell production in your gums, then that turns over better. And that also includes the gut. So when it gets into the gut, it also increases, epithelia layer thickness, so you don't get leaky gut syndrome, inflammation goes down. So, I mean, good oral health is like a really key to good health in general.
Absolutely. And I always say that the mouth is a gateway to your health, and it is the opening of the GI tract. So typically, if we do see inflammation in the mouth, there's going to be inflammation farther down in the tract, whether in the small intestine or the colon or the stomach area. So having something that you can actually swish and swallow is very beneficial for me. And I would love to actually start some of these oral health, at least observational studies on people, especially with gum disease or maybe difficulty healing, to incorporate C60 like as a topical, and kind of observe the healing.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely see results in that, because there's a lot of those persistent resistant conditions that you just can't seem. Some people just can't to do it. Like if you get your immune systems a little bit better, and also the mitochondria function. Because C60 being that SOD catalase mimic, there's certain people have a genetic allele, which as they get older, their SOD and catalase levels drop a lot more than most people. And so that can be a real problem. And then they have problems, healing basically. But if you take C60 as an SOD catalase mimic, it'll get in there and restart those mitochondria, and you can have really good effects, because there really hasn't, there's four big antioxidants that your cells use to stay healthy, especially in the endogenous way, and then one is CoQ10, and we can supplement for that. And definitely if you have gray hair, you should be supplementing with CoQ10 anyway. And now there's also glutathione, and now they actually have some liposomal forms of glutathione that you can supplement with, which they get past the gut barrier. There's maybe a question on exactly if they get to all the tissues at the mouth they needed, but it's certainly an advance. But for SOD, superoxide dismutase and catalase, there was nothing until C60 came around. And C60 isn't those, but it's a mimic that does the same job of both of those in one shot. And so when you take C60, it raises, it takes their place, but also it allows, like a lot of times catalase works with SOD, but catalase has other jobs dealing with hydrogen peroxide. So when you take C60, we have a lot of people that their white hair goes back to salt and pepper. Because
amazing.
Body's inability to work with hydrogen peroxide is one of the reasons why you get gray or white hair. And so C60 being catalase SOD mimic, it kind of raises catalase levels, and then your gray goes down.
Wow. Fascinating. And speaking of hair, actually, I noticed that when I started taking it daily, I actually like to just put it in my coffee or tea in the morning, a dropper full. I still use the oils. I didn't notice hair growth, that my hair was growing more rapidly. Is that something that's common?
Oh, yes, it's a common. Everyone, yeah, that's a common. Also, your nails will grow much more rapidly, because nails and hair, they're actually the same thing. They're just different forms. So yeah, people notice more hair and better nails. And C60 also, especially tried tropically, it can also increase hair growth and maybe re-stimulate some hair follicles. If it's caused by something besides male pattern baldness. Male pattern baldness is a genetic thing. It's basically only found in Northern European peoples because they wore clothes, and vitamin D is very important. And so generally people wore clothes, but they didn't wear hats. So, that's basically, guys, that's your little extra vitamin D, production level. It just comes, it's genetic. It's not going to,
okay.
But a hair loss due to other conditions, C60 is really great at helping.
Yeah. Any other health noted condition or health benefits that you want to mention regarding C60?
Well, the main thing is that C60 increases mitochondrial production, and C60 increases stem cell levels.
Okay.
And that's
Tell me
really
about stem cells. Like what exactly is the mechanism there? Is it the adult circulating stem cells that are
well,
naturally found in the blood?
yeah, it's that one. Actually, what they found is they were doing a thing on C60 and arthritis. So they gave rabbits arthritis, and then they injected in the joints. And because it's anti-inflammatory, of course, the inflammation went way down. And that was expected. But when they actually opened the rabbit joints up and looked at them, they found that the cartilage had regrown. And what C60
Wow.
does is there's a lot of things called senescent cells in your body. They're like zombie cells. The DNA is damaged, either the telomeres are too shortened or there's some other problem. And so normally the cell would go away through apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, apophagy, another name for it. But that doesn't happen. And so these cells go into the fermentation mode, and they also stop providing antioxidants to the mitochondria. So the mitochondria have to go into fermentation mode. And fermentation is like 1/20th as efficient as like the oxygen burning that our cells are supposed to do. That's why we breathe oxygen. But they also make all kinds of toxins which poison the cells around them and the body in general. Well, what happens when you take C60, it'll go into those, it's uptaken in those senescent cells, and it restarts the mitochondria inside of them as an SOD catalytic mimic. And then those mitochondria send messages to the nuclear DNA, and they will not get the right message back in a senescent cell. So that will cause apoptosis, or programmed cell death. So what happens is all those zombie cells that are poisoning your body, the senescent cells, they're wiped out with C60. C60 wipes them out. And now your body has less cells than it needs for the various tissue types. So it sends out messages, oh, we need more stem cells. So people have they have incredible levels of stem cells. We have a lot of stem cell treatment places here on the Front Range, and they often recommend to their patients start taking C60 a couple months before you come in, because you'll have way more stem cells. We have 70-year-olds with 20-year-old levels of stem cells, pretty common. And
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And you're bringing up this area of senescent cells, and I know on the market we have more and more supplementation with senolytics because of this zombie-like behavior that these cells project. And the only tool that's really been there for a long time is really fasting, because when we're fasting, we really get rid of a lot of these senescent cells. But let's face it, most people don't like to fast. So if there's an easier way, like taking C60 to help get rid of the senescent cells, it's really like a tool for longevity.
yes, and so I intermittent fast myself, and
Yes, me too.
So, but yeah, no, C60 kind of takes that little spot and it just wipes out those senescent cells to a large degree. Of course, if you intermittent fast and do it with the various other protocols, it will help as well. I mean, this is not the cure-all, but it certainly helps on the pathway, and that's really
Right.
the other. And so but the main benefits of having lots of stem cells is because stem cells are like they're baby cells that haven't decided what they want to be. So let's say
Yes.
if your immune system gets challenged by a pathogen, it'll send out messages, we need more immune cells. And if you got a bunch of stem cells, well, they can jump in and become immune cells. Or let's say you've had surgery or an injury. If you got a lot of stem cells, they can jump in there and become whatever tissue type you need to fix that. And we have a lot of surgeons that like to have their patients take C60 before surgery, because then they have a huge amount of stem cells. So they get really good healing results after surgery because they have those stem cells. But basically anything in your body, having a bunch of stem cells will make it work better. Whether, it's getting wrinkles in your face or having more hair or anything, and, or have a better gut. The epithelia, that's what happens. A leaky gut is your epithelia cells on that gut are not, you don't have enough of them to turn over.
Mhm.
And so you get gaps in it, and then things leak into your bloodstream, and that causes inflammation, which causes more problems, which causes, whatever. But if you get rid of the core before that happens, then you don't get that whole cascade pathway of inflammation.
Now going back to surgery, I perform oral surgery, as you already know, and a lot of people listening to this are going to probably in the future go to the dentist to have dental surgery. That's whether cutting in a tooth or maybe doing dental implants, reconstruction. So for those patients, how early before surgery should they start taking C60? Is it a week before, a month before? Do we know that?
Probably a couple months before. and
Okay.
just do the swishing around, and it kind of stimulates the gums and things. And depending on, some people might do it or maybe not. We also have C60 and MCT oil, which is now, MCTs are turned into ketones by your liver very quickly. But another thing that MCTs do is they get rid of they get rid of organisms with cell walls. Bacteria and yeast have cell walls, so it wipes those out. I mean, you can MCT oil as a rule, you can use it like topically to get rid of fungal and bacterial infections. It's been used by that, and there's plenty of studies on how it does that. So
Yes.
depending on it is, if you use like an MCT oil within your oral health, swishing it around, it can really take down, MCTs tend to take down those anaerobic bacteria, the bad bacteria, and tend to leave the good bacteria alone, so that it kind of shifts the thing to the good bacteria while getting rid of the bad bacteria, which is really what you want to happen.
Yeah, especially in the mouth where we're dealing with the microbiome. And I'm a big fan of cultivating or promoting a healthy microbiome. So, yes, exactly.
No mouthwashes, people, no mouthwashes.
Exactly. I say that all the time. You do not need a mouthwash for good oral health. However, if you want to switch with C60, that's actually a great thing, because there's a lot of oxidative stress that happens right around the gum line, especially for those of you that don't like to floss. And I know there's some of you out there.
Yes, and we do have some C60, and we have a really nice peppermint and cinnamon. And so you can not only swish and help your gums, but it'll also give you, fresher breath too at the same way. So you get those two things without, killing off all the bacteria, the good bacteria, because the bad bacteria grow so much faster than the good bacteria. So it's like you clear cut your forest, and then all you got is weeds. So yeah, stay away from the mouthwash. That's I go to a holistic dentist, and I've known that, I've been kind of part of that whole community thing of those, nature knows, but get rid of those fillings.
I'm glad.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that. Excellent. So how can people incorporate C60 into their daily routine? I mean, I know I take it in like coffee or tea. You mentioned gummies. And is there a better time in the day to take it, in the morning or at night?
Well, C60 kind of is a little stimulation, especially in the brain, because it goes up there first. And so if you take it really late at night, it can keep you up a little bit. So we recommend taking it in the morning. Oh, and since you are doing dental health, there's another thing that C60 does. C60 in the laboratory has been shown to change mercury hydroxide, which is a form of mercury, to mercury oxide, which is not biologically active. The body can grab it and pull it off. And a lot of people with mouth metal, those mercury fillings, when they first take C60, they get like a metallic taste in their mouth. And what happens is C60 also appears to dislodge inorganic mercury lodged in the tissues. It's a little bit bigger than mercury, but it has kind of like the same +2 charge. And so it tends to dislodge mercury in the tissues. But since you're taking it in the milligrams and mercury is in the micrograms, it prevents redeposition, so the body can seize it. So sometimes people with a lot of mouth metals, they'll get like a metallic taste in their mouth for 2 or 3 days, and then it goes away, and then they start seeing the health benefits. And we've had people that been testing before and after, and mercury levels and tantalum metals and other those +2 metals drop dramatically after you're using C60. So that's probably a beneficial for, especially if you've got mouth metals, you've got that mercury burden. C60 can help get it out. It's not the only
Definitely.
thing.
One of the things we do as holistic dentists is remove metals from the mouth, because metals don't really belong in the mouth, especially the stainless steel crowns or mercury fillings that are there, because those do leach mercury. We know that. So C60, I think, could be a good addition to when we do mercury detoxification, especially removing the mercury fillings, right? That comes first. Then we can work on the tissues.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, I can't. But yeah, you have to be, if you're going to get your mercury filling out, you need to go to a good dentist like you, because you have the health protocols, because taking that mercury filling out could poison you and the dentist if it's not done right. You have to have all that, air, and there's a whole protocol to make sure that you don't get a big dose of mercury poisoning when
Exactly.
they fillings out. That's very important to go to somebody who's skilled and trained in that. Otherwise, you could cause you even more problems than the fillings themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And typically, I like to recommend a certain protocol to help remove the mercury, because there's also small particles. Even though we use protection for both the dentist and the patient, there's particles in the tissues, like you mentioned. And oftentimes we see particles of mercury in the gum itself. They're lodged in the gum from when the filling was actually placed. So I think having something like C60, to help take that mercury away, really change the structure, which I actually didn't know about. So we can have this mercury oxide released and not reabsorbed. That's fantastic.
That's really important, of course. And there's so many toxins too in our environment. And when most of those toxins break down, they produce high energy oxidative radicals, and that's actually what goes and does the damage. And they've done a lot of studies with organic toxins. And when they take C60, even though you have the toxins and they're breaking down in your body, you don't get the damage that you normally would see, because C60 stops those oxidative radicals before they cause damage. And then the body can kind of release those or get rid of those toxins.
Yes. In the world we live in today, we're definitely more bombarded with toxins more than ever. Not just the oral toxins, but just the environment has over 70,000 man-made chemicals. And having an extra tools like C60 to help us detoxify, to keep us protected from radiation, protected from toxins, I think it's fantastic.
Yes, that is very important. Yeah, because it's just getting so bad. I mean, and electromagnetic radiation, 200 years ago, we didn't have electromagnetic radiation. It's like billions of times stronger now than before. And, you can do everything right, but you're still being exposed to stuff. And C60 helps just cover some of that extra exposure. But of course it does. You still have to eat right. You still have to drink pure water. You still have to, avoid, toxic situations and all of that other stuff that you need to do. Proper supplementation. I mean, there's like a lot of our foods are low in minerals, micro minerals. I mean, all of those things, you need to do all of those things. And C60 doesn't replace that, but it certainly is a good base to help your efforts to getting better health.
One of the things that, I'm thinking while I'm speaking with you is using C60 for patients who are coming in the office for x-rays. So is it just as good to use before the x-ray's taken and after the x-ray?
It would be best to use before. Several days before the x-rays, because that means it's in the tissues there. And what x-rays do, they're ionizing radiation, and they produce hydroxyl radicals and a little bit of superoxide, but not that much. It's mostly hydroxyl radicals, which is basically a water molecule missing a proton. The radiation comes in there, and we're mostly water, right? And so it knocks off those protons, and now you have this oxidative radical that can go on and cause damage. But C60 will neutralize that oxidative radical before it causes damage. Because what happens is that oxidative radical is off, damages a molecule, and then that molecule is now damaged, but then it pulls off another, and you get this whole chain. Well, you cut the chain off before it happens, and then you just don't get the damage. So but it would be, you need to take it like, several days before you come in to get x-rays if you're going to get that benefit.
Yeah, that's great to know, because we have patients that are, need to take CT scans, even though they're digital, they're still radiation. Okay. So it's good that we have a tool now to help them keep protection against radiation. Well, Ken, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for shedding light on C60 and what it can do for us. Any last comments that you want to do regarding any health issues or benefits?
No, that C60 is great. It has great benefits. I mean, do your own research. There is a website called whatisc60.org. It's like on our website, if you go to shopc60.com, you can, we can, for instance, post human studies, right? 3 letters. That's okay, because but animal studies can't be. But if you go to whatisc60.org, it's a 5031c. We and other good C60 companies support them. And there are a lot of good C60 companies out there. You just have to be careful. There's basically 3 things you want to look for in a C60 product. One, you want 99.9% sublimated C60. Sublimation is like a cousin of evaporation. There's a lot of C60 that's out there that's produced with solvents, primarily methylbenzene, which is kind of a nasty solvent. You don't want your C60, so just look for sublimated C60. Also, when C60 was a small market, everybody made a quality product because they and their families, but then used it, but then it became popular. So on all of our products, we have a QR code, and you can scan that QR code and it'll take you to a page where you can see third-party testing. Because after we make our products, we send it to a third party who independently tests them for purity and concentration. And also, we also post on there, that shows that all of our oils are organic. And we have the right oils. We have like the Goldilocks of oils: olive oil, avocado oil, MCT coconut oil, and our gummies have whole coconut oil in it. Because there's a lot of oils out there, the PUFAs, those oils that like sunflower oil or safflower oil or, God forbid, canola oil or soybean oil.
Not the healthy ones, yes.
Yeah, these are really high in omega-6s, and they cause massive inflammation, and you don't want those in your diet in any case, and you certainly don't want them with the C60 you're taking. So we kind of have the Goldilocks of healthy oils there too.
Oh, fantastic. And we're going to post those links down in the show notes for everyone who is interested. Well, Ken, carry on to, good things and bring us more information on C60. I'm definitely going to be watching that, whatisc60.org, and see what other studies they'll be posting.
Well, great. Glad to be on your show and share the information of C60 with your clients.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure.
Please make sure you check out the show notes for any links mentioned in the show. Do you have a question you'd like me to answer? Message me on Instagram at Dr. Sanda. This is Dr. Sanda, and remember, your mouth is the gateway to your health, so take care of it in the most natural and best way possible.